Hi guys, thank you for meeting today. So what we are going over today is we are going to look at some data that we got from the writing benchmark a couple weeks ago. And so I know everyone was supposed to bring something. You brought the you brought the data, the percentage of passing,
Yeah.
and then Christy, you
I
brought patterns
like
of power.
the scope and sequence of the patterns of power.
And then you brought the teaks that were low performing. So
Yes.
let's go ahead and get started. Let's start by looking at the data to find the teaks that the kids really hadn't mastered yet. So which teak is it looking like majority of the fourth grade teachers scored lowest on?
Well, I'm noticing one group is really had a difficult time with 4.11D, but I mean, it's just that one group, so I mean, that's something that they could go over during their intervention piece. But overall, what I'm seeing amongst all the groups is the TEAC 411D9.
Okay.
And also the other one that seemed to be struggling with low scores were 4.12D.
Okay, so I'm pulling up, what teak was that, Whitney?
So 4.11 is talking about appropriate capitalization.
Okay.
And I noticed that we have taught that at the beginning of the year. So I think they're struggling with retaining that information from the past, and it's been so many weeks since we have already taught that.
Okay.
So I think we definitely need to go back and reteach that.
So they're not activating their prior knowledge and really
No.
using those tools that they were taught at the beginning of the year.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything that they hadn't covered that would have been on the benchmark?
Okay, so I'm looking at, so what we've been using is the patterns of power.
Okay.
And noticing this, I'm looking at the scope and sequence, and the benchmark test, we just had that, and one of the questions, or that teach specifically the 4.12, is about dialogue, and, it is about informational tests, but it has dialogue in it.
So that's something we haven't done, is dialogue
Yes,
with the
and so-
capitalization and the punctuation, using the
Gotcha.
dialogue. So
Yeah.
we need to go back and do that.
Yeah, so we'll cover in patterns of power, we're gonna cover dialogue this next week, so.
Okay, so y'all already have a plan to cover it.
Yes.
Okay, so how did the ELLs do on compared to the gen ed? Are they all about the same?
It looks like they scored about around the same.
They're on the same,
They-
okay.
Yeah, they definitely struggled on that 4.12 teak too.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I did see that one scored higher.
One
Tell me
class.
how,
Oh, yeah.
Christy, tell me how you
Yes.
taught that.
That was, yeah, okay, so for the capitalization, what I did, I did a room transformation, it was really fun.
Wait, room transformation?
Yeah, it was really fun. So I was like, we all dressed up as detectives, and we turned the lights off, and I had black lights in the room and glow sticks or whatever, and it was like a glow detective, and they had to walk around the room and find the correct capitalizations and the ones that were incorrect using one of those mystery glow pens.
Oh, that's good.
And they were super engaged in that and really enjoyed that. So I don't know if that was like the magical answer or not,
But even like some type of boot camp, since it is
Yeah.
like right before STAR, that's
I mean, I
something
just
y'all could
noticed during
incorporate.
that lesson, there was like a lot of light bulb moments with that, so.
Okay.
I think that's really engaging. Something else too could be like an escape room.
Oh, yeah.
Like a capitalization punctuation escape
Yeah.
room where they get out and they get a prize, whoever solves that. So that's another idea too.
I like that. Okay, so let's go and kind of get a little idea and add on to our scope and sequence for patterns of power. And
Well, I mean, I'm gonna piggyback off of what, she was saying, that we do definitely need to go back to what we taught at the beginning of the year and start spiraling those things in, because I'm also noticing that they're not remembering and retaining that information. It has been a, an interesting year, so
Mhm.
we need to go back and touch on that. And then,
So y'all mentioned the TEAC is capitalization of historical periods, events, and documents.
yes.
So we spoke about dialogue. Is there any way that you guys could incorporate social studies in there?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that if we talk to the social studies teacher, she can start, pointing out those things because, in the TEAC it talks about historical periods, historical events, how you might see those things in historical documents. So just having her, realize that that's a low TEAC for us that she could help out with.
And also, the events and stuff is gonna have a lot of dialogue in it,
Yeah,
where we
for
can
sure.
try to pick specific dialogue information to go back to that,
Yeah.
since that's something we need to incorporate.
So once you go back and you have your scope and sequence done and you plan out all your lessons, kind of how will we know the students are prepared for the actual start? From this benchmark data, we see they're not, these TEACs are low.
Yeah. Mhm.
So as we're reteaching, how are you guys going to see growth and how are you gonna assess their growth? Like, some informal
Yeah,
assessment?
lots of informal assessments, meeting in small group,
Exit tickets.
and yeah, just doing some quick checks.
okay, I
To
like
check in.
those. So for that TEAC, let's meet back up in about 3 weeks. And bring the documentation of your exit tickets or whatever y'all are doing as a grade level so that we can go over it and see where we really need to go, hone in right before that test.
Okay,
So bring that documentation.
alright.
And then, so go ahead.
I was gonna say, at those times, then, if we still have some really low kids, then maybe we can pull a specific boot camp and certain
Yeah,
teachers
I like
teach
that
one.
idea.
Then
one
we can
part.
get-
Yeah.
And it make it more of like the intervention piece.
Right.
Yes.
Where you're
that
honing in on that
Stacy
one
was
thing.
saying
Yeah.
that it looks like some mastered, so not every teacher is gonna have to, hone so
Right.
much in.
Yeah.
And then the last part, we didn't really get to the last TEAC, but really for 12B is what you also said, Stacy, that, was a lower, and it looks like it's informational text?
Yes,
Is that
yeah,
informational text? So that's really just going through the writing process.
Mhm.
So, my suggestion might be to, as you're doing, the patterns of power, you're also gonna have to go through the writing process and
Yeah.
do at least one informational, topic and letting them, whether you let them choose or give them a topic, kind of going through that whole process.
Yeah, I think it's really important too that we make sure we really model that for them because then we have to consider last year COVID and so now just trying to catch them up a little
Are y'all
bit.
seeing some gaps because of them
Oh,
missing
I
last
mean-
year?
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's important. I think also giving them a template to follow would be helpful.
Yeah.
Like maybe letting them choose the topic, but giving them the template to follow along the way, so they're not just free writing the whole time and they have something to go off of.
Yeah.
That will help the lower students too.
And it looks like our ELLs, we're about the same, from this data. And so I think as a grade level, it'd be great to incorporate those things as, all together and plan those and work together to collaborate on those 2 TEACs that were not mastery.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, thank you guys. I look forward to hearing about your data, here in the next 3 weeks and, we can do this.
Alright.